Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin streamer. And today we're going to be doing a sort of follow up video for last week where we were talking about Pulp Fiction. And instead, we're going to be looking at some Pulp Fiction covers. Like, there are a lot. And I will share the link to this location in the description down below. I actually got this website from the article from last week, but on account of talking about, what is pulp fiction, what was pulp fiction, how has literature degenerated in modern day compared to, the greats of decades ago. Let's look at what used to be mass produced decades ago based on the covers alone, and hey, maybe we'll find some in here that have us that make them readable. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. The number one way to be featured is through Lemoy, the monthly prompt writing contest, where I give you a prompt, you write a short story using that prompt, and on the first Monday video of the month, we bask in your creativity. The second way to be featured is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or a book that is coming out. If you submit it to the Fresh Meat feature, the first chapter and the cover will be read here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your work. It is the best way that I can think of to share a max amount of stories, types, genres, whatever, for any type of audience without my cruddy opinions dragging them down. Let's be real. The third thing is, if you would like to check out any of my books, they're available at any of your favorite places to get books, including the local library upon request. And my newest novel, Body More Zero, featuring the brothers who are not currently on the screen but will be in a second here. They are the main characters. I love them. I hope that you enjoy them, but it's definitely not a story for everyone, I don't think. With that said, one of the first things that I want to talk about, or even ask you before we get into this, is how do you think stories have changed over the last couple of decades? Because if you look at art in general, art is always influenced by the culture at the time and also the fears of the time or the common feelings of the time. And so, if you're familiar with history, you can usually tie in what is popularly done in fiction with what is currently happening in real life. And it's not every book and it's not one for one in every book, but you can generally see kind of a zeitgeist that goes along. Like a lot of current modern media, at least from my experiences, because I think everybody also will experience some level of something different toward this depending on what they pay attention to, since there are so many genres. But I feel there is a large focus right now on the sense of dread, on the sense of nihilism, on the sense of hopelessness, on the sense of dark. That is one of the reasons why grim dark is so popular right now. Dark romance is very popular right now. And I also think that there is a desire to be able to fix the bad things. I mean, I think you can go in one of two directions. You can go in the full grim dark or the full nihilism, where it's like everything is pointless. Why do we bother with doing anything? You are a purposeless speck, and I have met people who do believe that. Or you can go in the direction, the most hopeful direction that you could possibly take dark romance in, which is no matter how dark it is, we're in this together. This person loves me. They will get to the ends of the world for me. And so no matter how bad it gets, they will be there and we can help each other. That is at least the bottom line that I would draw for the dark romance, which has been very popular in the early 2010s period. The dystopian was very popular, as there was a period of angels being very popular, and it was in the mid-aughts that the vampires were resurging in different ways. You had Sookie Stackhouse before Twilight became a big thing. And if you look at, but also not just that, if you look at the trends in other places, what I remember of the aughts was a lot of shock jock humor and a lot of raunchy comedies. Like American Pie was from that time period. There are also just like a lot of weird, just do your own thing, because I'm pretty sure Dodgeball, the movie, came out in that time period. Napoleon Dynamite came out in that time period. The one that was about Balls of Fire came out in that time period. And so, like, in the aughts, there was a lot of just do your thing, but it was also leaning on casual raunchiness. You had Bad Teacher with Cameron Diaz that had a teacher being raunchy around middle school students in order to get a boob job. That was literally the plot. You had House Bunny, where an ex-Playboy bunny went to a sorority and made it the most popular sorority when it had been the sorority for losers. So you had this mixture of sexuality and comedy that was very popular in the aughts that I think I've seen also in the video game remakes that are usually not necessarily carrying over into the remakes, because those things were parts of comedy of the past, parts of periods of the past. If you look at even the gaming awards from the 2000s when it started, they had Playboy models and Playboy bunnies and Victoria's Secret bunnies and body paint. And it wasn't really about the video games. It was about bros getting together doing things. So you've got things that changed over time in storytelling and how the audience of things and times have changed. And like we hear a lot about it right now on YouTube and on Book Talk, where you've got the romantasy or you've got the Book Talk romance of the week, whether it is the biker romance or if it is the hockey romance or the bully romance, which happens a lot because Atlas 6 is a bully romance, right? I haven't read it, but I'm pretty sure that's all that I've heard about it, is it's a bully romance. And so these trends go around, but let's ask, what does it connect to inspire the interest in that thing? So before we get into these pulp fiction covers of the past, to kind of just discuss what we're seeing and how it compares to today, I want to ask you, what sort of things are you seeing in your feed when it comes to books or movies or literature? What sort of changes are you seeing in modern day literature or movies compared to 20 or 30 or 40 years ago, even if you, depending on how far back you feel like you can knowledgeably go? Because I think this isn't about like fighting anybody on anything, but to express and share the perspectives and observations that only we can have. And I think that's invaluable in seeing the different things that we as a whole are exposed to and what we're paying attention to, because always we're going to pay more attention to something that feels more relevant to us, whether it is romantasy, even though we don't read romantasy, but we do read and write fantasy, so that sticks out to us. Whether we don't use Book Talk, but we do use BookTube, and then everybody on BookTube seems to be reading the same thing. And how does that happen? How does anything get popular on BookTube? Let's be honest, I don't know. I don't know how you get anything going on. Or it's the common circles that everything created in modern era sucks because XYZ reason. There are so many reasons, and you are free to share what reasons you believe current media sucks if you feel like it does. Personally, I don't like it. I can go back to last week. I don't personally believe that modern media sucks. I think that it is just, you have more availability to independently put stuff out there, so there is more content, whether it is the generative AI content, the first draft content. Like, you'll have Stephen King in Amazon right next to a 16-year-old who put something up in Kindle Unlimited, and that's not to say that people aren't doing certain kinds of marketing right now either, where you freaking banned books marketing is all over the place. So there's different types of marketing as well. And that's why I think it's interesting to share, what are we seeing and why do we think that we are seeing those things? But also why I want to look at the pulp covers, because if you are feeling hopeless because there was not this garbage in the past, well, let's have a discussion about pulp. I don't know, I just think it's fun. Look, I was looking at these covers. They've changed. They've added more, because this was not the front page of this website the last time I looked at it. But I think it is an interesting look into a time capsule of a time period. So let's start out with The Edge of Passion by Court Martin. First edition. His father's woman, beautiful, exciting, provocative, and nude. He would paint her his way and possess her. And to hell with the consequences. Honestly, it makes me think a lot about modern dark romances. It's a stalker, it's a possessive thing. Only thing is, this one is written by a man. Spicy detective. Oh my gosh, what is going on here? Do we want to know? More spicy detective. Blood Money by Arthur Wallace. helpless women. You, Joseph Howard. In case you weren't here for last week, so last week's video, I covered Pulp Fiction and where it came from, what it was, and that was like mass-produced, easily consumable, easy to get, cheap fiction, because it was printed on pulp paper. And so people had a hankering for reading, and they were like, how can we get more and new stuff out quickly to make sure that people have entertainment now that we have the printing press, that more people can read? So it was a way to give the populace more entertainment. And that's how we ended up with this. And that turned into the dime store novels. And then once television became more popular, dime store novels kind of faded away, and the television took over as the time spender for the working class. Spicy detective, rat bait. Oh my gosh, this guy looking so serious. Where are you at? There we are, buddy. Tell me you wouldn't put this as your book cover. So we got a lot of spice by BT Dub. Oh my gosh. A ransom note. Lock Your Doors by Robert A. Garin. Spicy detective. Spicy detective. Murder means fry. I see all of them have their busting open bustiers, or they're just in their bras and their dresses are falling off. Hates Harvest by Robert Leslie Bellum. Detective fiction. I see we are out of the spice. Satan Hall's Greatest Case. Mr. Sinister, a novel by Carol John Daly. You are next. I appreciate the expression on this face. Spicy adventure. Uh-oh. What do we think that tiger is doing back there? 1934. This was the very first issue of Spicy Adventure Stories, published as an ashcan edition to secure copyright. Only a handful of copies were printed, and they were not sold to the public. This cover is from a reproduction printed in the 1980s. Oof. Spicy Adventure by Robert Leslie Burnham. Uh-oh, Burma Booty. She thick, girl. Spicy Adventures, Burma Load by Lou Merrill. Do you wish that there was still something like this around where, like, I mean, we got literary magazines. Would you consider literary magazines to be of the same caliber as this? And it may be more competitive now to get into a literary magazine than it possibly was then to get into an anthology of these magazines. But what do you think? Also, are you surprised at the number of spicy publications there are? Because, like, you know how I feel. Maybe you don't know how I feel. I have an article talking about spice that I'll talk about at some point. I didn't know if I was up to it today, so we're just doing something fairly simple. What is this guy doing? Spicy Adventures, Bandit Gold by E. Hoffman Price. Spicy Adventures, Robert A. Garin. Why are they all in lingerie? Are they just running around in lingerie? Yoke of the Yogi by Robert Leslie Bellin. Mostly what I see in this, and because we see it differently now because of how social media works, is that you see a lot more of this type of fiction, but it's written by women, because my opinion, and take that as you will, but women use social media differently than men do. And in part, like with TikTok, a lot to talk about the characters and the situations, specifically frothing over the characters or the hot quotes, and spread that around. Whereas the gentlemen that use social media either don't post, they more lurk, or they take it a little bit more seriously and don't necessarily fan over the characters as much. Is that the same sense that you get? Because I have been saying it more and more, and I will continue to say it because it is important. If you want to see a change in the landscape of creative content, you need to talk about characters that you like. If you like them, share them, shout them out to the world, get people interested, tell other people why you love those characters so much, because that is what sends things off on TikTok. That is what gets people interested, is when you see somebody's passion, when you see somebody's enjoyment, when somebody says something that sparks you on that character of, you know what, maybe I would like that character. I should definitely check out that book. That's what it is. Imagination, science fiction. You Can't Buy Eternity by Dwight Swain. Imagination, stories, and science and fantasy. Children of the Chronotron. Now, if you were also fun question, if you were to publish in any of these pulp magazines, which one would you be under? The Spicy Detective, Imagination and Stories of Science and Fantasy. We've got our Gossy All Story Weekly, The Masked Barmaid, Imagination, Science Fiction, Corridors of the Sun. None of these women can get, I mean, he's got his torn shirt. These women cannot keep their clothing on, swear. Tramp Girl, Thomas Stone. One boy ravished her, another seduced her, a third coerced her. No wonder pretty Missy wound up with the morals of an alley cat. So she mistreated by a bunch of men, no wonder she sleeps around. My guy. A savage story of sin on the wrong side of the tracks. Oh my gosh, what is this? What is this bubble of hair with tentacles doing to this bikini-clad woman? Fugitive of the Stars. Do you think that he's giving it a belly rub so it'll let her go? The Reckless Virgin by Glenn Lowe. The sadistic masher, the twisted peeping Tom, the brutal attacker. She had tempted them too far, and now they were stalking her. It's another story about, look, at least we can look at it this way. Books about women being stalked and sexually assaulted have theoretically always been popular between both men and women. It is not a new phenomenon. Do you think that this book would be popular on TikTok? That's the real question. A present for Harry. Harry's present from his wife created a kind of excitement neither one bargained for. A missile silo? Is he gonna go nuclear on the East Coast? What do you think? How bad could it be? Imagination, stories, and science and fantasy. Vengeance from the past. That guy just getting a chiropractor break, you know. Read the entire issue here. Do you think it'll actually... Oh my gosh. For real job security, get ICS training? Is this a real ad? Can't stop worrying. You can stop worrying, Jane. My job is secure, and here's the insurance policy to prove it. My ICS diploma. Feelings of security is probably typical of every ICS graduate because as the job situations get tighter, the man with ICS training has the advantage. Why? Your ICS diploma tells you your present employer 3 important details. 1, you want to make the most of your present job. 2, you have the training and need for advancement. 3, you look for better ways of doing things. What you do about your future is up to you. Do nothing and stay at your present job at the same old pay, or earn LCS diploma in your spare time for security, promotion, and more pay. Your first step is to mark the courses of your interest in a coupon below and mail it to us. Oh, so this is like extended study. Cost pennies a day. Many an ICS student has made up the cost of his course in a month with the salary increase, his ICS. To the man who wants to enjoy an accountant's career, good salary, fine car, a nice home, bank account. Bruh, get your bank account today. If you're that man, here's something that'll interest you. Not a magic formula, not a get-rich-quick scheme, but something more substantial, more practical. Of course, you need something more than just the desire to be an accountant. You've got to pay the price, to be willing to study earnestly, thoroughly. Still, wouldn't be worth your while to sacrifice some of your leisure in favor for interesting home study over a comparatively brief period? Always provided that the rewards were good. A salary of $4,000 to $10,000. An accountant's duties are interesting, varied, and of real worth to the employee. He has standing. Do you feel that such things aren't for you? Why not, like so many before you, investigate LaSalle's modern problem method of training for an accounting position? How much of this is ads? I mean, I know we're in the beginning. Vengeance from the past. We got a monkey. Oh my gosh, you know what this reminds me of? Because it started like in a random chapter, not a chapter 1. I was watching a Rotten Mango video forever ago, these science fiction books, and she was talking about like this magazine that would have monthly or weekly installments, whatever, and it was including the Three Body Problem, which was going to become like a Netflix serial. And this chick was like reading every single copy of the Three Body Problem so that she could read the story. And it put different chapters in different books. That's what this feels like. If you were an indie author, would you participate in something like this where you could submit a couple of your random chapters? I should say periodically in different magazines to share your chapters. Fist of Shiva. You even got a cape. That looks a little like a drawing of a claymation. Slaves of the Horde Metal. Slaves of the Metal Horde. Give me a second. Beyond the Fearful Forest. Amorettes by Arthur Wallace. The Mad Bot. You know, if we could, as a society, replace some of the gossip magazines in grocery stores with these magazines that contain different chapters for different stories to then get people hooked onto your stories. Have to go find the full book. They could just buy the full book or go and find them all in the magazines. I wonder how that would change things. Western magazine. Mind your sight on sheepers. This cover is really nice. I like this style. The Argosy, Southwest of the Law by Rex Parson. Complete novel of love in the jungle. Ellery Queen, Mystery Magazine. Fighting Aces. Death Flies the Sky Route of Berlin. Phantom Detective, The Trail to Death. They do all look pretty intense, I'm not going to lie. A thrilling publication. Gas House McGinty. What do you think it's referring to when it says gas house? Look at this chemistry, though. Gods and Demons. Smart love stories. The entire issue. What is chastity? Detective. Michael Shane. Mystery Magazine. The body went to bed. When a lovely lady takes a walk after she is dead, it is up to Mike Shane to find out why in a startling new novelette by Brett Halliday. 1 Minute Murder After. Blues Detective Story. Bruh. Green Man Creeping? Not an inaccurate name, that's for sure. Oh, we got Flying Aces again for all of the stories that are about planes. Who in the audience has a plane story? Raise your hand. Do you have a train story? Okay, we are going to do automotive plane train stories. Step up if you got them in your setting. Manbait, ravishing Shirley swore to drive men wild. Do you think that she could? French art. It just makes me think of the French guy that was in Red Dead Redemption that was painting the nudes and everybody chased him out of town. Mercury Mystery Magazine, The Real Gone Goose. We must be in a different decade. With a sexy beatnik girl next door, life was not dull, nor was it safe. Who knows what a beatnik is? Show of hands. I want to see it answered in the comments. No cheating. I'll know if you cheated. Uh-oh. 7 sex facts every man ought to know. True men's stories. What does this have to do with the swastika? Are letter clubs promoting unnatural love? Letter club? Is that like a pen pal club? Somebody from this period, help us. Simple backache. It may be a warning of an approaching death. This is Google. This is Dr. Google, but it came in a True Men's Stories magazine. The Duchess Who Ran a Call House, the Nazi Joy Girls, and the King of Pain. Okay, look, we have to have a real conversation here. Whether it's Carlton Mellick III, whether it's the vampire in Grady Hendrix's book and the son in that, what is the interest with specifically Nazis? I don't mind. Investigate what you want to investigate, but it is interesting how often Nazis come up. And I want to get to the bottom of this. What is the draw? Is it just how well dressed they are? Do you just like the Hugo bossing around? Because why is that? Does this cover speak to you? Would you buy this if you saw this in the store? That's the question. Show of hands, be honest. The paper pistol contract. That sounds interesting. The babysitter. She was jail bait, a teenage man trap with a talent for trouble and weakness for married men twice her age by Vin Fields. Look, I think that we can at least take comfort in knowing that it's not always been women writing spice traps. Men used to have a cornerstone on spice trap magazines. Man's World, book length extra, waterfront wonton. I was a love prisoner. Point blank artillery ace who stopped the Kong of Firepower Mountain. Men's Adventures, the 10 hottest kisses in history. Bruh, how can you not give us a link to that? We need to know the 10 hottest kisses in history, okay? Nope, I couldn't find a quick copy of that, but I'll Never Marry a Virgin is also in here. Anita Ekberg's Farewell to Cheesecake. Oh no. Love Stories. Aw, look at that chemistry. Aw. Is that chemistry? Wrong Jail by Monty Farrell. Uh-oh. She got the hose. He looked like he enjoyed that a little bit. Just a little bit. Does that say adult reading? It does. Phantom Detective, The Corpse Parade, a full-length novel featuring the world's greatest sleuth. Strip, swap, and die. I don't think he's gonna get air from that. I'm just saying, I don't think... I mean, I'm not a spy, but I don't think those can be used as emergency air supply. I'm just saying. They might want to play... I can't... It's the octopus woman. The octopus of Hong Kong. Can we get a fact check? Is this what Hong Kong octopi look like? Frank L. Packard. The Gold Skull Murders. That's a great character design. Let's be real. All Story Weekly. The Caveman. Sequel to The Cave Girl. Wow. Creator of Tarzan, The Mucker, and many other great characters. All Story Weekly, The Eternal Lover by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Edgar Rice Burroughs is getting it, in which we meet Tarzan again. Look at all of this dog, all this fur. All Story Cavalier Weekly, Clavering the Incredibles, the wonderful story of a weird man. Who would like to read the wonderful story of a weird man? I feel like I've read that before. Would you consider Teen Death to be the story of a weird man? What's another one I feel like I've read recently? I'd have to look at my backlog. I think Diary of an Oxygen Thief. Abu, the Dawnmaker, Light Prophet of Dark Africa, begins in this issue. All Story Cavalier Weekly, The Scarlet Samurai. Oh my gosh, this woman is going to murder you. Detective. Die a Little Longer by Richard Deming. I mean, she do got. Let's be real. Look, you got the face. You got the gun. Just expand that out. I just don't trust that. Oh my gosh, he looks like he's about to cry. Crime Busters. Oh no. Oh, okay. He holding the gun. We're good. We're good. High living had a price, and she made men pay for it. Pay it for her. Frenchie by David Charlson. So is it another Ho piece? Passion and Lust, Ride the Skyways, Coast to Coast, Flight Girl by Van Nuys, adults only. You know, they used to put adults only on books, and now they try to hide it. Euphemisms. Wings of Sin. Cameron Howley. Susan was warm-blooded, but she wasn't too happy with the sexual impositions put upon the airline stewardess by the commanding pilots and co-pilots. Everybody is just horny. Little Tramp. She was jailbait. Why is there an obsession with jailbait right now? With an angel's face, but she couldn't leave her but he couldn't leave her alone. Young and Willing, by John Coles. They used the darkness as a blanket to cover their sins. Twilight lovers. You know, I like that her shirt matches the color of the bed and makes it kind of invisible. I like the contrast between that and her skin color. The Innocent Lesbian by Rex Weldon. I don't know. They look like they don't look quite that innocent. She looked young, sweet, and innocent, but her body burned with an intense desire that could only be satisfied by another woman. Why get married? She thought that she knew it all. Does she, though? Token West. Red Circle books, complete and unabridged, the entire thing here. Courtroom stories. How guilty was Mabel Champion? The trials that rocked the New York. Detective, murder jackpot, bluff game, coffin candidate. I'll be a coffin candidate. Oh, we're in sports. Complete sports. Wild West. This guy looks freaking ready. Hot lead is the only ransom for a kidnapped pardon. Thundering Oklahoma kid novel. Plus, the new Silverjack Steel. Would you be part of this? Like, for real? To sell your books. How did these stop? This guy right here. I'm sure there must be somebody around that collects chapters of various things that fit within a niche to, like, do right? Or is that just too difficult to do nowadays? Or not seemingly worth the effort? Because a lot of people got their starts in this stuff. Texas Ranger. Snappy stories. A lady at large. Aces. Mammoth detective. The Buddha said boo. That's a name. True detective. Mystery of the cloistered Gobbles. The woman who betrayed the U.S. Tomcat in tights. Complete and unabridged. Well, let's see what kind of stories we got in here. Slaves to the Metal Horde, which is 2,500 words. 25,000 words, excuse me. Robot armies have conquered Earth, yet Johnny Hope refused to surrender alive. Reception committee, 1,000 words. The world is but a stage, 6,500 words. Earthman Die Hard. Before colonization of the planet had to be sterile-free of one particular German. Beware the star gods. Kuru's people were certain Frank was a god, but then a true god is indestructible. The scandalized Martians. David Fry wanted his movie to be realistically out of this world, and it nearly was. Letters from readers. Okay, we gotta look at 112 and letters from readers. Let's do it. Pandora's box. I'm not entirely sure what Pandora's box means. Have you read any old magazines, science fiction magazines lately? The ones of which I'm thinking of are that were published in considerable numbers during the 30s. It's not only the paper that has aged. The stories seem archaic, with a tempo that's quite foreign to anyone familiar with modern science fiction. The science fiction of today, by comparison, is less concerned with the physical environment of the future than with the human adaptations to them. The conquest of the planets and the technologies that lead to the stars give way in emphasis to the people transplanted to a life on an unearthly environment of planet or moon or starship. The stories tell of the conflict of human beings under the influence of environments not naive to the race nor the ancestral species. They tell the social conflict of human beings in the far future when the ancestral home may even have been forgotten. Many facts are deeply explored which yesterday were merely exploited by the story's value. The relationship of man that has mechanical offspring with the robot is one. The relationship of man to his hereditary but hardly human offspring, the mutant, is another. The story of a man meeting his distant cousin, the humanoid or non-humanoid alien, is still another. But there are still stories in which the characters are limited to men and men's problems and settings which instead of being physically alien are either Earth-like or Earth itself. These stories are varied. There are too many alternative futures, which seen from a vantage point of today, but these stories are, in a whole, unified. Considered from the viewpoint that of speculation or scientific background of literary value, or, most important of all, the sheer ability to capture attention through the entertainment these stories in general are superior to those of yesterday. They're more true to life, more thought provoking, and they stress more important concepts, or should we say, concepts that are more important to us. For, in a large part, does not the same criterion we have set up for historical romances and history books hold true for the possible future history that science fiction portrays? We write of the future, but the aspects of the future that we choose to write about are those that interest us in the present. The best stories, of course, concern universal aspects. Perhaps the only way to tell if a story would be great is to wait and see if it endures. I mean, true. Isn't that something we kind of been talking about? The basic ideas of much of the best modern science fiction, man's relation to himself and other men, are found in all ages. But the stuff that sets science fiction off from other forms of fiction is found only in its own field, and often only within its own generation. Many of the science fictional worlds are part of at least utopian. The writer chooses his form of government, of social and economical and psychological relationships, and sets his story in a world of these elements. Or he may choose to show the negative utopia of what will happen if trends that he fears should come to fruition. These create worlds where it seems to be, to me, definitively concerned with the present, with mid-20th century Western men who are displeased with today and rejecting an unscientific yesterday stride forth into the unknown future, wielding the two-edged sword of science. The problems that the science fiction characters contend with are, after all, the problems of the mid-20th century, and the ways chosen to solve these problems, whether an electric pseudo-divinity, a far-reaching psychological conditioning, or the evolution of Superman, are actually mid-20th century ways. Aren't there many beliefs of modern science fiction that are taken for granted by authors or readers alike? Advance of technology and science is only one. Racial equality is one. As much more complete equality between the sexes is another. World government is another. These and many other fundamentals are not stressed in stories of the far future. They are held to be implicit. They weren't always implicit. I remember earlier stories that carried racism and sex antagonism and rampant nationalism to the stars, and thought it quite natural to do so. Of course, today's science fictional worlds don't follow the conventions of today. The relationships between the characters in a story about the future are seldom those that you'll find stressed in the love of pulps or of detective stories. Each writer sets up his own conventions in his stories, but it's surprising how similar many of these conventions are, and how similar in basic motivations many of the stories are. It is an interesting thought, and one of much too great scope to develop here, that the writers most ardently admired and the most angrily attacked are those who deviate the most from the convention of the future, whose stories are in the contrast not only to the world of today, but to the more commonly imagined worlds of tomorrow. As for the actual world of tomorrow, its motivations are likely to be different from ours, as ours are from those of the occupants of the medieval monastery, who thought the thing of the spirit, of those Greeks who scorned technology as fit only for slaves. Now to the fanzines. Okay, so this is a list of fanzines for getting different things, and an intro to that. Also, interesting introduction period, because I feel like you can see a lot of the same comments made in that opening monologue in 1954 as you see right now. And I also think It is interesting that you do have a harder time if you're going to break conventions, period. That just is how it is. And there's nothing wrong with following convention. You're likely to be more popular by being conventional, but you do have a harder time. Dear Mr. Hamling, Mr. Sabsaway's letter in the March issue was quite rational and objective. He said that the space station put up by us or the Russians would be regarded as the war threat by either. Now, I do not deny that as an American, I would feel more comfortable for the time if your government had it first. But this alternative, the Russian or us, is a way of putting in which ignores the objective realities of the quite misleading. Everything has stepped up to an increased tempo and intensity that we are all talking about life and death, war and peace in a worldwide way now. We cannot afford to be irresponsible or careless. Therefore, your reply to the letter becomes somewhat serious matter. It reflects an opinion which is too emotionally one-sided. Your would you rather is not a little abstract question. This isn't the 19th century, nor can we think in terms of a dramatic, our good fine American government will save the world. So, my point is that a United Nations space station could not be a war base, nor a competitive area. A world, however, with two space stations, one American and the other Russian, would be a dangerous place to live. To quote Mr. Sabsay, under the joint administration, the likelihood of war would be much farther away than under a one-sided management. In your reply, you stated that, quote, you infer that the best way to maintain peace today is to give your enemy the best weapons that you have. This would be much the same as putting a loaded pistol to your head and daring someone else to step up and pull the trigger. What weapon? What trigger? Where is there a trigger? The whole United Nations pull the trigger? Your analogy is incorrect and not thought out. What it is obviously well-intentioned, and the surface before a bumming patriotic is also nearsighted and subjective as to the most fantastical and undemocratic. Is the rest of the world not important to your ways of thinking? If the space station were the United Nations possessions, would you feel so unsafe? When I read such glib nonsense as your reply, I was riled enough to write a letter. It's not a little mistake in logic, a misquote, or even a sour note I wish it to correct. It's irresponsible thinking, like the one goes, let's drop the bomb on them first. Or, do you feel sympathy for the stupidity too? Oh no. Who's corrupt? Uh-oh. Dear Mr. Hamling, comes a letter by Mr. Pierce in March issue. If I didn't believe that everyone is entitled to a moral opinion, I could get a good laugh out of this letter. As a teenage, gods, I hate that word, girl, let me assure him that very few teenagers are being corrupted, shocked, or even embarrassed by naughty language. I certainly don't feel myself being corrupted. Actually, it is all a matter of opinion. Call it morals or religion, it is still based on opinion. Religious concepts cannot be proven to those who do not believe. Morals are based more on current standards of society than any way fixed and the lasting laws. The absolute purists for omniscience of all slang from printed materials, from printed matter, who believe as Mr. Pierce does, are far in the minority. They are entitled to their opinion, but they have no right to attempt to reform jobs for any publications, and you have no obligation to anything other than putting out good, entertaining magazines. Jean Courtois. So are we having the same censorship conversation as freaking in the 50s? This is what I find interesting. In your March issue editorial, you suggested that we invent a new medal to award to the first men in space. In my opinion, there should also be one presented to the personnel involved in the building and launching of the ship. A short article after some of the stories are unique features in Madge. I look forward to more of them in the future, and before closing it, I'd like to say that I rank Madge among the top 4 in STF, and the other 3 being Galaxy and Astounding Hope. I am not in the habit of criticizing science fiction mags, but they good or bad, but a situation has arisen whereby I cannot contain myself. Madge is going to the dogs. Stories which have been printed in Madge recently wouldn't be fit for the lowest pulp. I refer especially to Tyrants of Time in the March issue, which I was easily the poorest science fiction story I have ever read. The Cosmic Junk Man, the Time Armada, No Sons Left to Die, and Peril of the Starman in the previous issue were just as bad. One bad novel can be set down as a mistake, but the lead story in Madge, with few exceptions, have been getting constantly worse. How did you have the nerve to print such drivel in a mag that for a time ranked at the top? Not only the novels are degenerating, but the novelettes and short stories as well. Please, before it's too late, do something to put Madge back on top of the position where it is rightfully should be. You know, I almost feel like, obviously, this is not something that is not going on right now in different versions of like blogs and newsletters. But doing something like this, where you've got different like short stories, novelettes, maybe chapters from things with your letters to the editor, which is basically freaking Goodreads inside of the magazine, getting to share whatever you feel. I feel like that's pretty fun time capsule as well. Earthman Die Hard. A particularly virulent germ life infested the third planet of Sol. It was obvious that the world had to be decontaminated, but the aliens found... What is... Oh my gosh. Beware of the star gods. We got babes. Frank, this obsession of yours is getting serious. The men have asked me to have a talk with you. If you don't get a hold of yourself, you might even mean the brig man. Now, I want you to tell me just what all of this is behind all of this. Well, sir, it's just that I think that we're dead wrong when it comes in coming here is all. What we ought to do is protect these people from civilization. We discovered them. When we go back to report it, they will be property of modern materialism. Our supposed gifts to them will be nothing short of exploitation. I say that we erase our discovery from the record. What? I can see now why a couple of the boys had a fight with you. It's insane. For over 10 centuries, we have looked for other humans, and now that we have found them, we plan to force them into our own way of life as though we had found the only answer? Frank, I'm sorry to put it this way, but this is an order. Keep your personal opinions to yourself. You're on probation, and you're going to be watched. Dismissed. Okay. So we've been going for an hour with some of these. So I want to ask you this. Number one, would you be interested in a follow-up video where we read some of the things from some of these magazines? We can read some stories, we can read some nonfiction articles, and we can just discuss, and we can look for like more letters to the editor, and we can just discuss what we see in them. If that would interest you, I will consider it for next week's video, because kind of interesting to reach back, 70 or more years and look into what's going on. But if you're not interested in that, I mean, I'll figure something else out. We'll see. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are on this, on Pulp. Are you feeling better about fiction? What do you think has changed the most in fiction while you've been alive? Not comparing to stuff of the past that is before your birth. For me, the things that I remember the most, because I was a teenager I was reaching teenage in the aughts, is I remember the sex comedies. They always made me uncomfortable. I usually avoided them. I didn't like them. I don't like humiliation comedy either. So like a raunchy comedy, most of that stuff in the aughts was not a style for me. And I feel like character has gotten deeper in modern, like in portrayals of modern fiction. That's not to say that portrayals of deep characters were not in the past, but I think the things that we focus on have changed, and the types of characters that are more common have changed over time. And the stylization changes, obviously, with a decade if you place it in a specific time period. There would be a much longer discussion on that specifically if I wanted to get into it, but obviously this video is already long. I'm trying to close it out, so I want to get those last thoughts in there on you. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. With that said, have a great weekend and don't die. Because you guys all deserve it, I just want to say thank you to every member of the channel: David B, Just a Raccoon, Simon Taylor, Rainer Chan, Alta Monk, Off Fidel, Mercy Cunningham, Mike, Rayleigh's Movies, Thaumaturgist, and Spoopy Samuel. You guys help pay for what I do here, keeping what I do here for free. And if anybody else would like to become a member, link down near the description below. Thank you. I appreciate you all just for being a part of hanging out. Thank you.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross.
Is he in trouble?
We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer. For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die. Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that? To the left, plain black letters read along the wall. You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?